Hey guys, what's up and welcome to another video. Today we're doing something a little bit different. Normally I'd make a video of me working on the car and that definitely will still be happening, vlogs and things like that, but I wanted to make something a little bit different. I wanted to make a video for first time owner's guide, I guess, to the Nissan Skyline. Now if you've owned one Skyline, you've pretty much owned all of them. Except the the GT, like the G35s and Infinities and stuff like that Nissan put, they're not really Skylines. Let's just put that aside. And we're not talking about the GTR, although you can take a lot of the things I'm going to talk about today and apply them to the 32, 33, 34 GTR. I'm just talking about RB specific Skylines. So if you just got one, you've just acquired one from Japan, imported it, whatever, welcome to either your dream or your nightmare. I guess you can decide. Alright, so in my case, I have what's known as an R33.4. Now, putting aside the 0.4 factor of my car, this is really just an R33 GTST, which has an RB25 2.5 litre straight six with a turbo bolted onto it. It's rear wheel drive with a 5-speed manual. And I would say that the GTST version of the Skyline is actually probably one of the best platforms to start on for any rear-wheel drive fun. You can really get a lot of horsepower out of them without doing too much, and they're just a really simple, good, high-performance car. And this is my daily drifter here in Japan, so it was the perfect thing for me to get here. Now in Australia, I do have an R34 GTT, which is pretty much the same as the GTST, but for some reason Nissan took the S out and just put the T there, so it's the same thing. It's an R34 rear-wheel drive, single turbo RB25, so it's not a GTR. Now anyways, so at some point the previous owner before I bought this, he put an R34 front on it, which I thought was unique and I liked it, so I bought it. And I guess when it comes to all the other Skylines and stuff like that, there's quite a few different models, especially with the 32s. There's like the GT4, the GT, the GTST, and then there's obviously the GTR. I'm sure I'm missing something. Someone there will tell me in the comment section. And then with the 33, this kind of the same thing happened. And then the 34, same thing again, really. Like there was the non-turbo RB25, then there was the non-turbo RB20, and then there was the well, with the 32s, the GTSTs were an RB20 single turbo, which is a 2-litre straight six, and then it's a mess. Anyways, look on Wikipedia if you want to know all the model specifics. Moving on to the engine bay, this is the infamous RB25 DET. Now, if you're involved in the car scene or you just jumped into the car scene, welcome. But if you're involved in the car scene, you definitely know what this engine package is. And it is probably one of the most, I guess, good bang for buck power packages. I have to quickly add in here that the moment you post you owning a Skyline or this engine bay anywhere on social media, there's going to be that one person or a few people that are going to say LS swap it or put a 2JZ in there because this is junk. And you're going to learn very quickly to grab all those comments and those people, put them in the darkest corner hole you can find and pour gasoline on them and set them on fire because, yeah, they don't deserve your time. That's because this thing's going to become your wife. You're going to learn to love it. You're going to spend all your money on it, and occasionally it'll put out. But in all seriousness, the RB25 really is a strong, reliable engine package. And if anyone says otherwise, well, then they've just had really bad luck. And I'm not saying that like, oh, it's just a luck thing and the luck of picking out of the barrel, which whether or not your RB is a good, reliable one. But no, it comes down to being smart when you're buying an engine or a Skyline. Things like a lot of the really cheap, bad condition Skylines here in Japan get sold at auctions for like $2,000. And companies in America, they buy those, ship them over, polish them up, and wound back the odometers so that they've only done 50,000 kilometers, and then they sell the car for like 20 grand. So what you need to do is be very careful, make sure that the dealer that you're getting your car from is, genuine, reliable, doesn't have any bad history, and also make sure he has the correct paperwork that shows the last kilometers on the odometer of the car when it was last registered in Japan. If any dealer doesn't give you that in America, they're most likely dodgy. So if they don't have that paperwork that shows the history when this car was last registered and the mileage that it had, go find someone else. Also, if you're looking to get a reliable RB25 engine package, don't go buying it off some kid on Craigslist who, when you get there, has got their car like in pieces everywhere and is like, yeah man, she's all good, it's all good, like, it's got full compression and all that, blah 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 blah. Don't go buying an engine package from someone. This is just in general. You shouldn't be doing this with any type of engine. don't just go and buy a random engine from someone and expect that everything's going to be okay, because generally they've bought that from someone as well, and someone, and it's just been passed down, not knowing that the first person that sold it like 5 people ago actually sold them an engine with a spun bearing already. So be really smart, and if you are buying an engine to just like swap into, say, like your S chassis or a shell or something like that, it's better to generally just go straight to a JDM wrecker that's actually got the engines there and has proof of the kilometers and stuff like that, and you can do compression checks and things like that, and make sure that you're getting a good engine from the get-go. If you're going to go get an engine that's been put together by some 13-year-old kid that has no mechanics history, that's just read everything on the internet, probably not a good idea to go and get that. So when a lot of people in the States and even in Australia are complaining that the RB engine isn't actually a reliable engine because it broke on them, it doesn't take too long for you to scroll down on their Facebook feed to work out, oh, this person picked up this engine from a friend that said he was an engine rebuilder and blah, blah, blah. I mean, the list goes on. I could rant on about this for ages. Okay, so enough talking about the RB25 and how much of a good engine package it actually is, and not to believe what you read on the internet. What you need to do is a few simple things when you first get your Skyline, and that is do a full timing service. Put an aftermarket high performance timing belt on there, like a Gates or a HKS or something, or like the Tomei high performance belts on there. So you want to do that right away, because like I said, unfortunately you don't know what the condition is of this engine. So, and the last thing you want is a timing belt to break. It's the thing that people generally don't look at. So just do a full service on this. So timing belt, tensioner, water pump, check your clutch fan. It's very common. You can see here, there's a split in my clutch fan. They split all the time. Make sure you check that, and if it's really bad, replace it. Mine's getting to the point now where I need to replace it. I already have a spare inside. Now, other things you want to do. Replace all of your radiator hoses. It's super easy. You can just get any brand of silicone hoses. They're all pretty much the same quality. Just make sure you get one that's designed for your car, like the 33 or the 32 or the 34, and you'll be fine. Now, the next thing that you want to do is, generally RBs do have a tendency to run quite hot. Now, you have two options here. You can keep the factory radiator if you want, or you can upgrade to a bigger alloy one. Now, I currently still have the factory one, and that's because I have a big ass oil cooler in here, and that actually keeps the temps really nice and low, especially when drifting. I don't have any temps going over 90 degrees anymore. Now, the RB typically generally does operate in its factory condition once it warms up at around 85 to 90 degrees Celsius, so don't be too scared when you see those high temps. Next, let's talk about this whole contraption here. Now, this is typically known as the J pipe on the RB25 because it looks like a J. Now, rumor has it that when Nissan was developing the RB25, they realized that it had a bit of an issue with torque. So they opted for this intake manifold, which gives them the ability of longer runners and coming up like that. But that also means that you have a lot more piping, which can, I guess, increase turbo lag and things like that. So a lot of people, they generally swap to a forward-facing intake manifold, like the Greddy. For instance, my company makes them, the Ataka Garage billet intake manifold, Hypertune, Plasman. There's a lot of other companies out there that make a forward-facing intake manifold for that. And that's great, that's fine, but you don't need to do that for making decent, reliable power. Yes, it does make your engine bay look pretty, and yes, you can get a lot more power out of them in the top end when you have a bigger turbo, but you don't need to worry about that unless you're going for that. So that is an option that you guys can do, but you don't need it. It's not necessary. So let's talk about the turbo. Now, I don't have the factory turbo on here anymore. I have a Mamba GTX 3071R. And it's a bolt-on kit, and it actually performs amazing. I highly recommend it. I might even throw a link in the description to that for you guys. Now, anyways, let's talk about the turbo. Now, Nissan realized halfway through there was a lot of problems with the RB turbos. Now, from factory, they came out with just actuator boost pressure, which is 8 PSI. And it was quick, it was zippy, nice little zippy car, but a lot of people obviously realized that you could turn the boost up with a simple boost T or a boost controller, and that's really when the RB comes alive. Now, you can turn the boost up to 12 PSI, no problem with the factory ECU. You can get a remap and things like that to make it a lot better, but it's safe to turn it up with the factory ECU without a retune. So that's what a lot of people did, was they put boost controllers on this, turned it up to 12 PSI, and that was it. You can't go above 12 PSI with the factory turbos. Now, at some point, Nissan did make a turbo that was steel-wheeled front and rear, compressor and turbine, but they're kind of somewhere in the middle of Series 2 and things like that, so they're hard to come across, but it's just a general rule. Don't turn your turbo over 12 PSI, especially if it's a factory one. So, and the main reason for that was Nissan used a combination of acrylic and ceramic for the turbine wheel and acrylic for the compressor wheel, and they just can't go above 12 PSI before blowing and sending shards through your engine. So make sure you don't do that. The other thing is, when it comes to the whole turbo system, is Nissan put on a side mount little intercooler. Highly recommend changing that to a front mount, like a Greddy or a Blitz kit one that comes through here. The return one adds extra piping and can just cause more lag, but I mean, I guess the piping is still going to be the same if you're not getting rid of your intake manifold and changing that to a forward facing one. So there's a little bit there with that. So don't turn your turbo over 12 PSI and get a front mount intercooler. It makes a world of a difference. Another thing I'd recommend is, I did touch on about how I have an oil cooler on this before, but getting an oil filter relocation really does help. The oil filter on these RBs is down there and it's a bit difficult to get to and always just puts oil all over the subframe. So that's always something nice to do. Another thing that I wanted to talk a little bit more about with the turbo and kind of just making reliable horsepower out of your RB. The easiest step is fuel. So think about upgrading your fuel system. You need a fuel pump, so something that moves around 255 liters per hour. Walbro, Nismo, Tomei, any of those basic universal pumps will work fine. So if you've got that, you're good. Fuel pump. Next is injectors and fuel pressure regulator. So I run with a genuine Tomei fuel pressure regulator. Don't run any of the cheap Chinese ones. They have a really cheap and bad diaphragm in there. And what that means is over time, after heating and contracting and moving and everything, they break and they will potentially either shut off fuel pressure to your engine, causing it to lean out and your engine to blow up, or send too much fuel pressure, causing a hose to burst and fuel going all over your engine, hitting the exhaust and catching the whole car on fire. So basic things, guys, and this is what I can't stress enough. When people complain about the RB25 being unreliable, I ask them, well, what type of things did you bolt on? Were they genuine parts or fake eBay parts from China that were really, really cheap and dodgy for things that are important, like fuel pressure regulators that control the pressure of your fuel? Like, that's a no-brainer. Why would anyone spend only $20 on a fuel pressure regulator when that is something that can either burn your car down entirely, hurt and hurt a lot of people, or completely blow your entire engine up? So just, you got to be smart with these things, all right? I'm sure you guys can all agree. So fuel pressure regulator, then injectors. Now, super common on the RB that everyone upgrades the factory fuel rail and puts top feed injectors in. That's totally okay, you can do that. Pretty much all the RB25 Series 1s and Series 2 were all side feed injectors like the SR. So the SR injectors are identical to the RB25 Series 1 and 2 injectors. If you had an RB25 Neo in the 34, they were top feed 12mm injectors, I believe. I could be wrong. But yeah, so I think they were actually 14mm bottom, 12mm top on the fuel rail. So yeah, that was on the 34 Neo. So yeah, I opted for the Nismo, or actually these are Tomei variant ones, the Tomei 740cc injectors. Now I am only at about 50% of my duty cycle on these injectors. So there's a lot more room for me to go still, which is great. So I bought the extra ones just because I knew in the future I wanted some more horsepower. So you can only, if you want to make 400 horsepower, you can just go for the 555cc ones. So you can either go Nismo, Jex, Tomei. Actually, all of those brands are identical. Jex make them all. They come from the same factory and manufacturer. It's a little secret. Just be very careful with the ones you buy on eBay. They're generally China copy ones, and they don't flow well at all, and they will cause problems. So once again, touching on things that you can cheap out on and not cheap out on from China, you need to be very smart. Like for instance, you can probably cheap out on China and getting some silicone hoses for your radiator and things like that, right? Because these, if they pop off, you're gonna know about it right away, shut your engine off, it's gonna be okay. And I mean, they can't really screw up silicone hoses that much, right? But when it comes to things, like I said, like fuel and turbos and other things like that, you need to be more careful. So, injectors, regulator, fuel pump. and then you're good. So that's all of my fueling sorted out for making over 400 horsepower. Then the next thing I needed to do was I needed to look at my turbo. Now I blew up my turbo for it over boosting, went over 12 PSI on drift day, and it ate the compressor wheel and spat crap everywhere. So I had to upgrade the turbo. I mean, I could have gotten just another RB25 one, but you know, I wanted more power, so we went down that route. Now, Mamba is a really great Taiwan-based turbo company. They sponsored me with this build and this whole kind of YouTube series of me getting this car to 400 horsepower. So thank you very much again, Mamba. And I got their bolt-on kit, which is their GTX 3071R. Now, as I said before, it's bolt-on. It's a really nice kit, makes a lot of horsepower. It is a little bit laggy, and that's because I'm still using the factory exhaust manifold and things like that. But we can fix that in the future when we move to a top mount manifold and things like that. But for now, it's great and it's doing an awesome job. So we got a bigger turbo that can do more than 12 PSI boost. And the next thing that you need to look at is engine management control. So my ECU, I'm using Link. I highly recommend Link. It's been raining a lot since I've been talking out here. I highly recommend Link. Really good plug-in ECU package that replaces the old circuit board in the casing of your Skyline ECU, and you can pretty much do anything with it. Once you buy that ECU, I know they're a bit pricey, they're about $2,000. Once you buy that ECU, you will never need anything else in that area, and whatever you do in this engine bay, it will do it. So highly recommend Link ECU. It's just such a good investment. So once I got the ECU, I got the turbo and the fuel, pretty much it was good for me to go to the tuners. Now, one thing I do want to touch on is obviously front mount intercooler is also a must, and you should have a good flowing exhaust. I have a 3-inch catback exhaust. The downpipe is 3-inch, and I recently threw on a Tomei downpipe for this turbo. So depending on what turbo you have or get is going to depend on what things you need to do there for the exhaust. You may need to get a custom downpipe if you move to a top mount and things like that, but that's that. Now, I haven't done the head gasket. I haven't opened the engine whatsoever, changed anything in there, not even cams. Everything is standard. And all we did was turbo, fuel, and ECU. Went to the tuners and we made 395 PS. And that is absolutely awesome. And like I said, my injectors are only at about 50% duty cycle, so there's still a lot of room there for the fueling system. And after that, we're going to do a head gasket, cams, and we're going to turn the boost up some more and get probably, I'm thinking 480, 500 out of her. So, and that's pretty much, you don't want to go much over 500 on the stock bottom end of the RB25. After that, you really need to pull it out and put some forged internals in there. There are guys that have definitely gotten the stock running gear and everything up to higher levels, but it's just from that point onwards, it's getting a little, as we say in Japanese, giddy. It's getting risky. You're not going to really know what's going to happen.
Alright, so that's enough of me talking. The video definitely kind of turned into more of a rant video than anything else, but still, I hope you guys still enjoyed it. And we're going to do some more videos and things like that about the Skyline platform, and you know, like we're going to do a video specifically dedicated to like how to get a reliable 400 horsepower package, as well as touching on like all the things that happen on the Skyline that I guess it should be general common knowledge for people that own the Skyline. So I want to do like a few more videos and explaining those types of things from my experience, and just things that, you know, everyone should know when owning a Skyline. But anyways, thanks heaps for watching, guys. I really do hope you enjoyed this, and check out all my social media down in the description. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. If you want to send me anything, my PO box is down there as well. And yeah, I guess that's it. Catch you in the next video, guys. Ja mata ne.